listen very, very carefully.
Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Brought us from the motherland in bondage and chains. Bury our culture and change our names. They claim we're free, yet we are in pain. As long as there's life, there's a lot to gain. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. When God spoke his words, they said he was deranged. Marley sung his songs, they said the same. Malcolm X and Martin Luther fought relentlessly so we could be better. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Brought us from the motherland in bondage and chains. Bury our culture and change our names. They claim we're free, yet we are in pain. As long as there's life, there's a lot to gain. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise.
Very, very carefully.
Tell the youth them for be strong. You can't tell the youth them for preach wrongs. While you try it on these lands, just remember every man is equal. Yeah, each one teach one. And our Father God, him are the only done. So make we ease and reason. Smoke trees, span the ends, all the deep meds. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's the government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Yeah, bigger heads no love people again. Them more sad than little of them. Me see friends now reason again. Vex through whistle a blame. What time it hurt me to see how the face deal with the eagle of them. Regular me see it a pain. Regular me see it a pain. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's the government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Social commentary, drop the one your principle, you don't know the global will comment with. Some people life every day it's stress. The high price from JPS, that topic is currently. Jah alone him a go help me. We need food and we no healthy. We are feel the pain, beg you protect we. In our life we have no fanfare. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's the government no have no heart, them no care about poor people.
Recognize royalty, recognize it, recognize royalty, gotta recognize it, recognize royalty, like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
There's nobody out there besides me doing research like this. Check this out.
So I want y'all to notice the question he's typing in. The question is, did Jamaicans vote to remain under British rule? Did they vote to do so? Right? And look at the answer he gets. And notice he doesn't like the answer. So he's going to change the question. Watch.
Watch this right here, family. No, Jamaicans didn't vote to remain under British rule.
Jamaicans did not vote to remain under British rule. When they had a vote, Jamaicans voted to withdraw from British rule, right? So Jamaicans voted to be independent. That was the vote that was made. But that's not the answer he's looking for. He's looking for something that says Jamaicans wanted to be under British rule. So it's apparent that when there was a vote, they voted no. So he doesn't like that answer. So look what he does.
Instead, they voted in a 1961 referendum to, no, that's not what I wanted. I want them to take.
That's not what he wants at all. He doesn't want to hear anything about them voting to become independent. He doesn't want that. He wants something else. So look what he runs to.
The poll. This is a poll. So I put the wrong language there.
Right. He wants a poll. Right? Not a vote, a poll. As if a poll is more meaningful than a vote. As if a poll of a population is more meaningful or says more about the population than what the population votes for.
I wanted to be a poll. Oh, go back. No, it wasn't a vote. My fault. Take a poll. Did they? There we go. Did they take a poll? Can I spell? Let me just put that in right there. Okay. Okay.
And again, just look at how dishonest he's being or deceptive, right? But let's just see where he takes this.
Right here. So recent polls show that a majority of Jamaicans support becoming a republic, not remaining under British rule. This view remarks a reversal from polls conducted around 2011, which indicated a preference for retaining the monarchy. Look, in 2011, family, that's what, 14 years ago? Surveys commissioned by the Gleaner found that 60% of Jamaicans believe the country would have been better off if it had remained a British colony.
Now look at this con man once again. Look what he just read. He said recent polls show that a majority of Jamaicans support becoming a republic, not remaining under British rule. He just skipped right over that. He just went right past that. And it says this view marks a reversal from polls conducted under 2011, right? But he's going to go to the 2011 vote to prove his point. Even though, again, recent polls show that a majority of Jamaicans support becoming a republic, not remaining under British rule. So you could see just how incredibly deceptive this guy is being. It even speaks about the recent polling right under what he's focused in on. Let's see if he mentions that. Let's see if he talks about the recent polls that says they would prefer to be a republic than remain under British rule. Let's see if he does that, or if he's going to continue to try and give the impression that the 2011 poll is really what represents Jamaica.
In 2011, they resented being independent. They wanted to remain a British colony.
And just so on, let me just read what it says about the recent polling, right on his own source here, right on his own website, right? What he's reading, right under what he read. It says recent polls. Surveys conducted in 2022 and 2023 by Don Anderson and Lord Ashcroft, respectively, showed declining support for the monarchy and majority support for becoming a republic. A 2022 poll showed 56% of respondents wanted to remove the British monarch as head of state. That's what his own poll, his own source is telling you. So he's going back to 2011 to prove his point. Polling from 2011, when there's even more recent polling available from 2022 and 2023, that's right there in front of his stupid face. But let's see if he acknowledges it.
Fight to get away from white supremacy. They fight to be remained with white supremacy. Now you see why we got two different outlooks in America? Read that over. I'll give you some time. Matter of fact, let me help you out. Let me do a border. So you don't, some of y'all got ADD, right? Let me help you focus.
Yeah. Okay. See, he's helping you.
Look at
this fool is helping you focus in on the 2011 polls and just ignoring the recent polling. This is what we mean by deceptive and unbiased connery.
That's 2011.
Fool, there's 2022 and 23 right next to that. You fool. What? And this guy talks about how great his research is. Look, this man completely wants you to believe how great his research is, and it's staring him right in his stupid face. Look, 2011 polls, recent polls.
Most of the country did not want to be independent and run their own shit. They wanted to be under the white man's thumb. The colonizer, and they talk all this colonizer talk. Oh, the colonizer, neocolonialism, all that imperialism. They talk all that talk, but almost the entire country rather be under the thumb of white supremacy than run it themselves. But they'll tell you they fight the Maroon War and all this shit. Okay, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So this will make me unique. This type of information I bring.
Yeah, information you bring is outdated information from 2011, when there's up-to-date information staring you right in your stupid face. Let me see if hopefully he'll scroll down to what it says about the 2023. Let's see if he scrolls down.
I bring that ugly information. Okay, I bring that ugly truth.
Ugly truth indeed.
It's that Bubba Sparks. Let me leave that there while I read. Okay. So, as I said, Britain encouraged them to create a West Indies Federation, to come together under one banner, West Indian, one flag, or West Indian flag. They didn't create one, but one government, one currency. Okay? 3 years, they said, nah, the hell with this. We going back to Zaddy. You know what? And we going to flee.
So is he going to talk about the recent? He's not going to talk about the recent polling, is he? He's just going to ignore it. He's just going to ignore it even when it's right in front of his face, which only shows you he wants to present a narrative. And whether he finds information to go against his narrative or not, it's inconsequential to him. He's just going to put a border around what he wants you to see and focus in on that. This is clown research.
Yeah, it says it.
Come on, buddy. Let's go. The recent polls is right there in front of you.
In the 2000s. This ain't 1940, 1920. This is the 2000s. They rather be under British control than their own black sovereignty. They talk all that sovereignty talk. Marcus Garvey. And these dudes wanted to remain under the British control.
Wow. He even brought in Marcus under there. Marcus, who wanted to take us back to Africa. He's even saying Marcus wanted us to be under British control. Isn't that something? Right? So he quickly ran away from the data that said when there was a vote, Jamaicans voted to remain independent. When there was an actual vote, not no polling, because we know there's a difference between a poll and a vote, right? And even if, and the poll said that they think the country would be better off. That's what the poll said. This 2011 poll. Read what it says. It says the Gleaner found that 60% of Jamaicans believe the country would have been better off if it had remained a British colony, right? That doesn't mean that if they had their chance, they would go back to British rule. That's not what that says. That's not synonymous with that. Just because you think the country would have been better off under British, as a British colony, doesn't mean you want to go back to being a British colony. It doesn't necessarily mean that. People would still want to remain. There's still something about being an independent country that people would want to maintain. But they didn't say they want to go back to British rule. They said they thought the country would be better off. And as crazy as it seems, there are black people today in America who will say that the black community was better off during Jim Crow, that it was more cohesive. There wasn't so much single mother households. Like, these are the arguments they make, that the black community was better off during Jim Crow. People have that viewpoint, but I wouldn't say those people that hold those viewpoints would want to go back to Jim Crow. Just because you think certain things may have been better off doesn't mean you want to go back to those times. They're just saying that those things were better off just to prove or make the point that things don't have to be that way. Or things don't have to be the way they are with all of the high single mother households that are present. When they say things were better during Jim Crow, they're just saying the black community doesn't have to be the way it is now. It can be better. But we don't have to go back to Jim Crow in order for it to be better. That's not what they're saying. It doesn't mean they want to go back to Jim Crow. So to say because Jamaicans feel like things were better off during British rule, to equate that with, they want to go back to British rule, is also just as irresponsible. And, this guy just shows that he just wants to be irresponsible. He ignores the fact that when they actually voted, and they actually put a vote to it, they said, nope, we're staying independent. And in 2022, the numbers flipped. In 2022, it's right there, 56% of them wanted to remove the British monarch as the head of state. And, even today, I believe that they would, if there was a vote again today, according to these polls, if there was a vote again today, they would vote to stay independent. Even if 60% of them still believe that they would be better off being a British colony, if you put it to a vote, they would still vote to remain independent. That's just how I see it. So I asked ChatGPT, did Jamaicans vote? Actually, this isn't ChatGPT. I Googled this question. And I've actually Googled the first question that he put in, the one that he ignored. I said, did Jamaicans vote to remain under British rule? And it says no, Jamaicans did not vote to remain under British rule. In fact, a 1961 referendum led to the country's withdrawal from a proposed regional union and ultimately paved the way for its full independence from Britain in 1962. So again, when it was put to a vote, they said, no, we don't want to stay under British rule. The 1961 referendum voted no to the Federation. The referendum asked citizens of Jamaica should remain in the West Indies Federation, a political union of several British Caribbean colonies. A no vote meant independence. When 54% of Jamaicans voted against remaining in the Federation, the result was interpreted as a decision to seek complete independence on their own. Led to independence, following the referendum, Jamaican leaders negotiated with Britain, and the Jamaican Independence Act was passed in 1962, granting full independence. All right, so again, I think that if you put it to vote again today, you're gonna see the same results. And, the polls suggest that. A continued link to monarchy. Google says, while Jamaica chose to be independent, it maintained a symbolic link to Britain for decades by remaining a parliamentary constitutional monarchy within the Commonwealth. This meant that the British monarch, first Queen Elizabeth II and now King Charles III, served as the head of state, represented by a Jamaican Governor General. The current Jamaican government has presented a bill to remove the British monarch as head of state and transition to a republic, though this process is still ongoing. Did y'all hear that? The current Jamaican government has presented a bill to remove the British monarch as a head of state and transition to a republic, which is what America is. So Jamaica doesn't want to go back to the monarchy and want to go back to being under British control. The very current government wants to remove the British monarchy as the head of state. That's what they're working towards now. So how does a country whose government wants to remove the British as a monarchy want to go back under the monarchy? This is nonsense. This is foolishness. This is someone who claims to be doing research, but is only pretending and wants to provide a certain narrative. But get your facts right, buddy. Get your facts right before you start running your mouth. At least have your facts straight. So that's where we are. Every chance they had, every vote, when they voted for independence. The most recent polls say they want to remain independent. And the current government is moving towards removing the British monarch. So what this guy is talking about is complete foolishness.
Like I said, they're not like us. We're different. There's nothing wrong being different, but I'm going to embrace my differences. I'm not going to be ashamed to say I'm different.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be ashamed to say you ignore facts that are right in front of you, because you just had the data right in front of you and you just ignored it. You just got killed by your own source. A pseudo just died at his own source, which was staring him right in the face. Pseudo as hell. The data was right there in front of him. He just died by his own source and didn't even realize it. Dead man talking.
Okay. All right. So let me get rid of this.
Yeah, let me get rid of you and your pseudo research and pseudo information.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them up to one hygiene a tweet. That's why enough of them get rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want to drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 bills we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet. But keep a eye open every time you go sleep. Cause mankind jealous and them idle go rape. Them never yet plant and not try figure rape. Bigger heads where you fight for the sake. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle we submit. The system will slide where you fit.
In the streets so we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life,
Everybody a priest say them want the dough. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
cause this a real ghetto life, this a real ghetto life, yeah. Everybody just a pre-success. When me looking at the street, you me see enough stress. Them all a fight for who reach up next. Everybody want floss and a beat up chest. Juvenile in a them teen love sex. Them a breed the fast money, them no need subjects. And if you're unfortunate, please don't vex. Also the things said cause the streets don't
In the
rest.
streets so we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life,
Everybody a priest say them want the dough. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
cause this a real ghetto life, this a real ghetto life, yeah. It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them up to one hygiene a tweet. That's why enough of them get rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want to drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 bills we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet. But keep a eye open every time you go sleep. Cause mankind jealous and them idle go rape. Them never yet plant and not try figure rape. Bigger heads where you fight for the sake. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle we submit. The system will slide where you fit.
In the streets so we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life,
Everybody a priest say them want the dough. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
cause this a real ghetto life, this a real ghetto life, yeah.
Like the rushing of a mighty wind. Like the rushing of a mighty wind.
What's your thought? Do you think that Drake is a foundational Black American?
Nah, I would call Drake what he calls himself. He says he's Canadian. Who am I to say, no, you're foundational Black American? He says he's Canadian. He's Canadian.
Right. So doesn't the lineage supersede with you say it doesn't matter if somebody believes they're Indian or Moor or Hebrew Israelite, they're still FBA or Pan-African, whatever.
Well, that's a little different because I heard you in Tariq. That was probably the best you ever did, by the way. That was the honest you ever been. You finally asked some good questions. Those are good questions, but I think you just found a gray area in this whole thing,
And you know, an unbiased Khan is giving it up like that. It was more than just a gray area. It was a dark gray area. you know, because I agree that is a good question, and I'm happy that at least Unbiased Khan acknowledged it as a good question. But let's just dive a little bit more into what his response is.
When I was listening to it, I'm like, you know what? That just got to be worked out. Like Tariq said, most of us don't have that problem. So yeah, the exception is going to the people who's in that condition. Yeah, they're gonna have a rough time, and that's why we try to say, hey, they within your lineage, so, you know, and your citizenship, so you ain't got to worry about you like that. But yeah, but that.
So he said that's just something that has to be worked out. That's just something that's just going to have to be worked out. And, you know, I don't know, like, how long is it going to take for this to get worked out? You know, let's say they pass the reparations bill, the money is put aside, you know, will they set aside money from that for people who have to sort their stuff out? You know what I'm saying? Like, will they wait on people to sort their stuff out? Or will the money, because it's only a set amount of money that's going to be, you know, put aside for reparations, I'm assuming. So will they put aside some for the people who need some time to show that they really are FBA? Is that how that's going to work?
I think there's a lot of curves and turns in there, which is kind of hard to like define. I don't think we really sat down and thought about it to that in depth with that situation.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I didn't realize till after Drake.
He said he doesn't think they have thought about it as much as they should have yet. It's not something that they've thought about yet. You know, someone like Drake, who has a mother who is an FBA, I think it's his mom is FBA. But only one parent, he's an American citizen, but he grew up in Canada. Like, does he have any claim for, you know? And that's a gray area according to Ron. That's a gray area that they just haven't thought through yet. And I'm hoping that, you know, as they speak, they kind of get through the thinking through of it. Because I think that's going to be important to know. I think that's going to be important to know.
You know, U.S. citizenship by way of his father. He has birthright citizenship. So that's something I didn't even know.
Yeah, so for me to like even look into that, I gotta check out, like, both of y'all know more than me as far as Drake background. So I would have to like really come on, let's get water. You want a damn donut instead of real food? Yeah, so both of you know more than me as far as Drake background and his citizenship. You know, I don't know much about it. I would have to like look into it before I give you any thoughts on that.
Yeah, that one seems to have them stumped. That question right there. I would love to hear the conversation that Kwame had with Tariq on this topic. Yeah, I would love to know. Kwame, if you're out there, if you end up listening to this video later, you want to drop a link for the video that you're in asking Tariq about these things. And because I would just really like to know what his responses were to it. Because, you know, those are quite legitimate questions to ask. And I think they do kind of throw a curveball into the FBA ideology. And I think it kind of shows the failures in it. But let's listen some more.
Before we shift gears there, before we shift gears, because I heard like a lot of the Kyrie and all that type of stuff. So before we get out of Drake too fast. Okay, so again, Drake would be in a gray area. So there wouldn't be no yes or no. That will be worked out. So there's a lot of people, there's a lot of questions when they was trying to determine who gets.
Drake would be, there's no yes or no for whether Drake gets reparations or not. We are not sure whether Drake is going to qualify for reparations yet. Drake, the multi-millionaire Drake, we don't know if he's going to qualify for reparations yet.
Reparations, and we start talking about lineage, that type of stuff. Drake would be in a gray area, so there wouldn't be no yes or no. That will be worked out. So there's a lot of people, there's a lot of questions when they was trying to determine who gets reparations, and we start talking about lineage, that type of stuff. Even at the beginning of trying to figure out how to be determined who qualifies, even the 1870 census, all type of stuff, there was gray areas even then. And I remember Yvette and around their think tank was saying, okay, right, well, they just gonna be on hold, right, until we figure that out. But that's like tickets.
They're gonna be on hold. Drake's reparations money is gonna be on hold. We're gonna put that to the side. And then we're gonna pay everybody that we know should get it first. And then afterwards we work out those minor details about your lineage and how long you've lived in America. Are you a citizen? You know, you may have lineage in America, you may have FBA lineage, but you're not really a citizen. You may have moved and you're a citizen elsewhere. Like, do you still get that money? They haven't thought that far through yet. But you know, those are minor details. I mean, what percent of FBA people is their lineage going to be in limbo? Like, I mean, what percent of FBA can actually trace their lineage back to the 1800s? I don't know. I don't think it's as easy as we're making it appear to be. I don't think it's very easy. So I think that they may have more people on hold than people that will actually, you know, get that payment. More people will be on hold than the people that will be allowed to participate in the program. So Drake will have a lot of company on hold. And again, you know, based on how much money is set aside through, because I'm looking at reparations from, you know, the Congress, the HR 40 bill that's going through. And I'm thinking it's going to be a set amount of money. I don't know if this is going to be just like an open fund, which gets funded every year. And then once FBA finds out, you know, who's really who, and once people sort their stuff out, once FBA sorts it out, you know, we'll make an amendment to that bill and start funding it again for those people that weren't sorted out. I don't know if that's the expectation or if that's the vision of what to expect. But, you know, it sounds like what naturally would be, though.
To it like a carnival or an event. Like, your ticket is like kind of crazy looking where you can't really, or they can't scan it with their phone. They're going to put you outside the line, you know, to get the line going. So unfortunately, for those people, and there's not a lot of people, but there are some. But until this is worked out, even Turkey, she was asked that same question and kind of concluded the same thing. Like, yeah, well, shit, unfortunately, it's going to be on hold until everybody's, you know, they're going to be on hold and the line would just keep moving. Right. So he has a unique situation where it's kind of arguments favor his position and the arguments can go against it. So it's really going to come down to like anything else, like voting, or that's what it's going to come down to. Like, people are going to vote something in, stand on it, and that becomes standard. So Drake will be in the gray area, and people like him will be in gray areas.
Right.
Yeah, so let's just hope you're not in the gray area. Let's hope you're one of those that's not in the gray area. Unbiased Khan seemed to think that the number in the gray area is going to be a lot less than the numbers that we are clear about. But I don't know if I'm that confident. I don't know if I'm that confident. But he seems to be. But I think we're going to find more people in the gray area than not in the gray area. And I think that that's going to cause some issues that they are not going to necessarily want to address, which is why I think they are choosing to not address it. Just seems to be one of those things that they'll address when they get to it, I guess. They'll address it when they get to it. Hopefully, all the people in the gray area will be as wealthy as Drake and will just decide they don't need the reparations anyway. So, hopefully that's how it works out, nice and smooth.
Yeah, you have to surrender, bro. You have to surrender to the minute.
I respect that. I respect that answer.
That's all.
Yeah, I don't respect that answer as much as Kwame did. Because it's a no answer. I don't respect that answer. It's just a no answer. We don't know what we're going to do with them. We don't know. We haven't thought that far. And I don't know if they can think further. I don't know how far they can think. So I don't necessarily respect that answer as much as Kwame did. I think Kwame kind of let them off easy with his response.
He says Assata Shakur. Okay, so really, she's FBA. She was born here. As far as I know, FBA parents. Yeah, I don't know why she would be in question.
Because I know that she gave up her U.S. citizenship to go to Cuba. So I was just wondering, like, political prisoners
she's. And to answer your question, as far as I know, she's still old. It's like, what does that got to? She was old before she left. That's like somebody going to prison. They're old. Yeah, I don't know why she wouldn't be.
Because when I spoke to Tariq, he kind of said you got to be a U.S. citizen and have blood, have FBA ancestry. Kind of like, like the Nazi slogan, blood and sword.
I heard that bad analogy. Wait, hold on, brother. Hold on. Because I don't want to be long-winded. I just want to have a conversation where, it's a couple words and you stop and no. Right now, we just dialoguing, right? So,
yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So now, as far as that, I kind of lost my train of thought. So you said, last week you said, the Nazi thing is a bad analogy. Now you know better. To compare. See, and that's when people start to dismiss you from the panel, because you that's the worst thing you want to do is compare anybody to Nuremberg laws or Nazi Germany. Like that's just a bad faith everything at that point. It's like no.
Yeah, as if. Yeah, I hear you, but it's not as if FBA don't compare tethers to white supremacists and say we're working for white supremacists. So, if you can claim that tethers are working for white supremacists and we're the new face of white supremacy, then we can make whatever comparisons we want to make. At least I can. So, if you live in a glass house.
Nobody wants to be compared to Hitler or anything affiliated with him. So when you do that, you're purposely being disrespectful and trolling. Even though I don't take offense, I'm just saying like I know how people take that. When you compare anything they do to Hitler, anybody in the world, unless they are Hitler or is on that type of shit, they're gonna take offense to that. So anyway, just stop doing that.
And you know, that may be true. People may take offense to it, but it was very clear. I think Tariq wanted to, you know, the fact that he used that term blood and land, I think he wanted to use that same type of thinking and that same type of phrasing that the Nazis used, blood and soil, blood and land. That's not by coincidence, I don't think. I think he was consciously aware of those two terms, and I think that is why he used it. I think he was conscious of it. So, you know, it's not as if people are just saying, oh, just out of thin air. Like, why would he use the same term that they were using? And then, you know, if you watch the video that I made, I think, you know, there are other similarities and other parallels that I think are quite valid. So, you know, I don't think it's that far off.
That's a bad faith. All right. Yeah. So, see, I kind of lost my train of thought when brothers started talking. So, what'd you say before that? You said, what'd you say before that? I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
brother interrupted.
Because Tariq said you have to have ancestry.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. And now I remember. I got you. Now I remember. So you spoke.
I
got you.
So I'm asking.
Now we're moving on. All right, I got you. Let's go. Right. So you spoke to Tariq Nasheed, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we've been trying to tell you as. Nobody's the leader. People can have an idea and it's worthy of entertaining. You put that like a job. You put your suggestion in the suggestion box. So that's something to like. So everything he says, you ask for an answer. Let's get the answer. Just like politicians and bills.
That wasn't me. Okay. That was your boy.
My fault. Not my fault. So just like I'm used to people just cutting in. So like bills with politicians. When they put together a bill, some type of legislation, it's like picture perfect the way that person seen it, that legislator or politician seen it. This is perfect. But then to get it passed, other folks in that same party could say, nah, this won't get passed like this. And then they try to like critique it and omit and add to make it more favorable for the next party that got to pass it, right? Or Congress, they'll do that. So same thing with us. If somebody who's instrumental in opinions and make a little sense, those get thrown in there in that suggestion box, something to look at, something to vote on, or something to, you know, critique and take in, take out. So all these unique things, that would just be one of those. Like, okay, how do we look at this one? Then we'll come to the table, FBAs, no non-FBAs, come to the table, and we'll look at these unique situations that's far in between, right? That's not the case really for most people. I'm sure maybe 10 people others got something similar, but that's one of those things. But yeah, so we will, as long as the questions come about these things, we'll say, you know what? Yeah, let's look more into that. You know what? Yeah, you know what? I didn't think about that one, because most of us are not in that position. So we kind of think just for ourselves. Hey, I'm good, so I ain't got to worry about that. But yeah, there's somebody out there in that position. Yeah. So I wonder how many more. Okay, let's compare notes. You know, think tank on this, brainstorming, come up with something. That's all.
That's all, folks. You just got to have a couple of think tanks to think through how things are going to work. You know, they can't really think of everything on the fly. They're not going to know the answers to everything. So, you know, they're going to work it out as they go. It's a work in progress. Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On that deal with.
Ooh, yeah.
Suddenly there came a sound from heaven rise of a rushing mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Come and fill our hearts again, like the rushing of a mighty wind.
Yeah, blessings. Once again, you know the routine, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. All of that helps. So you don't know. Without any further ado, let's get started.
So I was asking, is black race exclusive or is it a culture?
Race exclusive.
Is race exclusive?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the people
race
that
exclusive? I'm sorry, what does that mean, race exclusive?
Meaning that is race exclusive, meaning black is simply a race, period. That's all it is.
Okay.
Black means anybody of African origin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who can't? Well, I agree with you. It does mean that. Dex said
So you can't be a European or a person from Asia and be black.
Oh, you could be a race and be anywhere. That don't make no sense.
Now tell me what I said. Tell me what I said.
You said black people didn't have any culture. That's mind boggling to me.
People,
I ain't never.
Hold on. I'm about to tell you why I said it. Black people have a culture appropriation. That's what they have. We have.
Who culture did we appropriate?
From the African people, the original African people. We're appropriation of that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like we don't specifically have a culture, but I'm saying it's culture appropriation. That's what. Exactly.
But that contradicts the statement. I mean that's a contradictory statement.
No, it's not. No, it's not, because
we culturally appropriated. I guess you would say an amalgamation of African traditions.
Yeah,
and then formed a culture. Correct.
Yeah, but it's stemming from a different culture, so that's culture.
So I'll ask you the question again: do black people here in America have a culture? I don't care where it comes from. Do they have a culture?
Yeah, it's called culture.
Is it exclusive to black people?
I would say yeah. Not really.
Okay, so that means you would have. So you just basically confirmed
but listen,
that it's not race exclusive.
No, but listen. It's a lot of people that do come to America that identify with our culture. So with that,
I didn't say nothing about that. I'm trying to get I'm trying to walk you down the street.
But listen, would they be excluded from it? No, they're a part of it. So you can't.
I'm gonna ask one more time. Do black people here in America have a culture?
Nope, because they got it from somebody else. That's not their culture.
So you just lied on yourself earlier. So you've established that black people ain't got no culture here in America. That's fine. I totally disagree, but hey, you entitled to that opinion. If we gonna entertain the fact that black people here in America have a culture, despite whether you believe
our culture is not what you think it is. It's just
I never said what I thought it was. You putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm not.
M20, do you know the definition of a culture or the bulletin points that meets the requirements of a culture?
Food, clothing, traditions, annual traditions, or semi. It don't matter. Things that we've compiled within a generation and took somebody else. Every culture got it from. I'm not arguing. Why you keep saying that? I don't understand why you keep saying it.
Because it all come from one. It all come from the first one culture.
Let me ask you for a fourth time. Do black people here in America have a culture?
Not necessarily.
That's why I said.
We don't have a culture.
You don't have your own. You don't have your own language.
Language that ain't exclusive to culture.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
Yes, it is. You could look up You could look up the 8 bulletin points of what define a culture is, and language is literally one of them.
Language is not exclusive to the culture. You can take somebody.
Bro, if you look up the 8
listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I am saying, bro. Please listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I am saying. Listen to what I'm saying. He just said that you can appropriate and create your own distinctive. We
That's not what I
appropriated English,
said.
bro.
I said culture appropriation is stealing it from somebody else. That's what I said.
Kwame, do you think
Go ahead,
Jamaican patois is a language?
Yeah,
You think
Jamaican
Jamaican is a
patois.
language?
Jamaican patois is definitely a language that distinguishes from English. The morphology, the African loan words will make it distinguished from English, from the set language, according to linguists.
Have you seen where linguists have stated that?
Yeah. I can send you the video.
Provide a source for that?
Huh?
Can you provide a source for that?
Yeah. I could put it in the back.
Jamaican patois to be a language, like a patois is kind of like a broken English to me, like more of a dialect than a language. So
I mean, the morphology is different. It's just different. It's just different things with Jamaican patois that's separate from English. But I could provide the source in the back. Give me a second.
Okay. All right. Blessings. Go ahead, MD20. You can finish your conversation.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm not disagreeing with nobody. Y'all trying to make me say something that I'm not trying to say. All I'm saying is every culture gets distinction from other people. That's just what it is. You can't name me a culture that just sprouted out of the ground. It don't work that way.
Actually,
we are social people.
Actually,
golly, bro. Again, English is part of our culture.
Oh, it's not. What are you talking about? Culture
I've been speaking English all my life. So have my parents. It's part of my culture. I don't know about yours. It's part of mine.
Yeah, they come from the Anglo-Saxon. They come from Black Americans. Yeah,
that wasn't my argument.
Yeah, so it don't meet the requirement of a culture.
Golly, bro. I can't believe we're sitting here saying that it's got to be exclusive to a certain group of. It don't work that way.
I'm going off the definition of. I'm going off the 8 bulletin point.
I agree with the definition. I agree with the definition. I agree with it. That is not saying that you got to make a language. It don't work that way. I agree with what you said.
Brother, one of the bulletin points is English, is language.
I agree once again. It don't say that you got to create the doggone language. You intertwine it to make a subset of your own distinct thing. Just like you could say Patois did as a subset, just like you could say Gullah Geechee did from the Barrier Island. It's all different. I'm not Gullah Geechee.
So white people culture is black people culture.
I don't live like that, bro. I don't give a damn where it comes from.
They speak.
I don't care, bro. I don't. Again, you trying to again? I don't care, bro. I don't care where it comes from. Through circumstances that I can't control. Through circumstances that I cannot control. That's what happened. It is what it is, bro. I don't think that way. I'm not. I ain't holding my fists up all day long. Black power. That's just what it is.
It says the shared knowledge, beliefs, values, language, customs, behaviors, and material objects. That's why I said we don't got a culture.
Share from who?
Share from the masses of who we are as black people here in America.
I agree. Again, 100% agree.
All black people don't act the same. All black people don't share the same.
Correct. That's why you have subculture.
No, it's called culture appropriation.
Golly, bro. You understand all black people. Remember we was talking earlier, you said something about a person from New York or LA not the same as a person from the South. Why is that, bro? Because we migrate and take different aspects of a culture and integrate it within our own. This is not a hard concept to understand. I'm trying to figure out like what the problem is.
That would be a subculture in your definition. But what I'm saying is we all as a subculture have gotten a culture from somewhere. That's what I'm saying.
I don't disagree, bro. What are you trying to make me say? Tell me what you're trying to make me say.
But it's not what you saying. It's how you defending your
I'm defending it because it's inevitable. I can't stop it, bro. I can't stop it. That don't mean it's not part of my culture. I'm from the South. My culture ain't the same as somebody from New York. Hip hop, is that my culture?
Dude, we all speak English, right?
Please, just, bro. I mean, is hip hop part of my culture?
Yeah.
Based on what? An amalgamation, right?
Based on Kool Herc creating it, yes, it's their culture.
Right. Based off of an amalgamation of different sound that came from where? The South. But you'll hear a lot of New York people say hip hop not part of my culture. It's a teeter-totter type situation.
It's a New York. Hip hop was created in New York. It wasn't created down south.
I agree. You're not gonna get no argument from me. So when we're talking about subset,
and if it was created,
subset in amalgamation,
and if it was created by Caribbean, would hip hop be now considered Caribbean culture too?
I wouldn't care because I don't do stuff like that. I don't care. So again, bro, you're trying to make me say something. I'm not gonna say it, bro.
I'm just asking.
But he's asking a logical question. He's saying if it was, would it be Jamaican culture?
If it's integrated within Black society here in America, yes, it would be considered Black culture.
Yeah, it's not. He's not asking a guy.
But just because it's created from a Jamaican, that don't make it exclusive Jamaican or American. It was created here. So I mean, again, we talking. It's not necessarily about who sprouted what. It's where it got sprouted from, and what circumstances made it sprout. That's culture.
I'm glad you're agreeing with me, but you seem to.
I've been agreeing with you the whole time. You've been trying to start an argument that I've never started.
No, I didn't try to start an argument.
But what I'm saying, and that goes back to my point, race exclusive. You're talking about race exclusive.
I gave it its proper context.
That's fine.
It's called culture appropriation.
Whatever you want to call it, bro, at this point, I don't care. But what I'm telling you is, it's not race exclusive. We understand the history behind scientific racism and all. Hell, even going far back as, say, 7th century with the Islam conquest. Black been around. But what I'm saying is, us here in America, now this you can't deny. We're the only people here that distinctively identified a culture, whether it's amalgamated or it's sprouted out, again, irrelevant to the point.
So
where we identified our culture simply based on the confines in which we were identified here in America, which was Black. Thus, you have Black America. We can't call ourselves nothing else. I mean, that's just what it is. I'm talking about culturally.
So are Black Americans the only people that was called Black?
Huh?
Are Black Americans the only people that was called Black or identify themselves as Black?
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said cultural identifier. That's what I said. I just everybody around the world, and it's not even what we identified. It's what other people identified us as. That's a moot point.
See, the fact is that Black, the term Black didn't just exist in America.
I just said that. Literally just said that.
I know it existed in Africa before anywhere else. That's the point. The fact of the matter.
Give me an example. Now in the back chat you said Kemet, which I think is false.
No,
it's not
that's
false. Been debunked. So.
Kim means directly Black. So you can look this up. I'm not making this up. You can look it up.
Black in the context of what?
What do you mean? It's just Black. That's what it means. Kim. It's a language.
What's for even to this day? What's fertile soil called? Which was pretty much the best fertile soil in Africa, point blank period. What is it called? Even to this day.
Kemet, the land of the Black. What are you talking about?
So are we talking about skin tone, or are we talking about the fertility of the land?
We're not just talking about the fertility of the land. We're talking about overall. The God.
I don't know what overall means.
I mean, God-like image. God-like image. I hate using the word God because it just like it puts it in the Western mindset. But that's how I could relate a message to you.
Hey, on that point, bro, you got it.
M20. Are you trying to say that Black is exclusive to Black Americans?
No, I'm saying Black is exclusive to Sub-Saharan Africa.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not, because people all over the world claim to be Black. So what are you talking about?
It's exclusive to Sub-Saharan. Like I said, I don't even want to get into the argument. That just is what it is. But
you saying that you agreeing with us, but you disagreeing with us.
I disagree with you on that point wholeheartedly. But again, I don't want to get into the argument. We ain't talking about that right now. What I'm saying is, you cannot name a culture. Now, culture, we talking about the culture identifies the people that came up with the culture. Black is the only people here in America that identified the culture as they represented themselves. That's just what it is. I'm not saying that you can't call yourself black. Of course, you black in the eyes of the oppressor, first and foremost. So let's get it.
Are we black in your eyes? We don't care about what the white man said. We talking about you.
Yeah, you're black.
So what do you really disagree with?
As a cultural
I don't understand anything you're trying to say.
As a cultural identifier, no.
Explain. You just said black is exclusive to sub-Saharan Africa. Now you're saying black is exclusive to Black America. So I'm kind of confused.
Culturally.
Culturally, like what?
Like meaning the culture was founded upon the identification of black.
What part of the culture is what he's asking?
It wasn't number one part where we came from the slave ships on to the hells in North America in the South.
What did they bring
in the South?
Did they bring the beliefs, values?
You don't have to bring nothing, bro. Do you understand? I can go in the woods right now with my family and another family and come up with mores and ways of living in the wood, stuff that I already had before I went into the wood, and create a whole new culture. You understand that, right?
I agree. And me and American.
So what are we talking about?
Yesterday, he just had this conversation yesterday with us, and that's what I was just saying to him.
All I'm saying is that culture that was created is identified based on the people, which is black. It is no other name.
But you're not getting his question. Ask it again.
And I said culturally, no.
You just said black is sub-Saharan African. Now you're saying that black is exclusive to Black Americans. So
I didn't say exclusive. I didn't say that.
Okay, so can you reiterate what you just said there?
I'm saying that you are looked at in the eyes of the world as a black man. No question about it. Culturally speaking, what are you? Let me ask you, culturally, what are you?
I'm an African.
Okay, there you go. You just answered my question. So culturally, no, you're not black.
Well, what are you talking about? Black is synonymous with African. It's used interchangeably.
Again,
that's why on the census record it say black / African American. That's why on the census record. That's why on the census record it says African American / black, because it's used synonymous. If I go to the Yoruba different than European or white. It's used synonymous.
If I go to the Yoruba right now in Ghana and I ask them, hey, what's this culture called? What are they gonna tell me?
Probably the Yoruba traditions.
Okay, cool. If I go to
but African or black is amalgamation of different tribes and ethnic groups, just like white or European.
Again, I'm talking about the identification of a culture. That's all I'm talking about. Nothing else. The identification of a culture, just one. Not all, just one. The only one that has that same identification as the people through racial, scientific racism, black, is the Black American. You can't deny it.
Okay, so when they say Haitians are the first black nation, first black republic out of slavery, are they talking about Americans?
I would say cool. I will ask them, hey, Haitian brother, what you call your culture? And what would they say?
I don't know. I'm not Haitian, so I wouldn't know what.
I give you a hint. It ain't black.
I mean, how would you know? Are you Haitian?
Bro, come on.
Are you an expert on Haitian culture and?
Come on, my guy. Again, I'm gonna say it one more time.
But you're speaking for 12 million. You're speaking for 12 million people.
The only black
you're not an expert,
African
so I'm trying to understand
in the whole world that is identified under blackness is the Black American culture. That, I mean, and until you show me otherwise, that's what I'm gonna run with.
That's not true.
Bro, I just gave you an example
show me otherwise.
of what they referred to Haiti as, the first black republic.
I didn't ask you what they referred to them. I asked you what they consider their culture.
Yeah, they consider themselves black.
How do they identify that? How do they identify?
They identify as black, just like I'm a Jamaican. We identify as black.
Okay. Until you show me proof on that, I'm gonna just say you're right.
Dude,
and I'm gonna concede.
What are you talking, bro? I'm literally telling you I identify as black, and you're telling me something. You're disagreeing with what I'm saying.
So I would agree with you if you were an individualistic person in that matter. I don't believe you are, but if you were talking about it in that aspect, yeah. I'm talking about what
I would believe the consensus of Jamaicans will identify as black. American Dream, you're Jamaican, right? Do you identify as black or African?
I didn't ask him if he identified. I said the culture. See, again, you're mixing it up.
The culture is black.
What's my Jamaican friend, American Dream? What do y'all call the culture on the island of Jamaica?
I think he's doing something right now.
Oh, okay. Like I said,
Yeah,
you know,
and
I'm not claiming to be no expert. I'm not
me?
claiming to be no expert on it, but I'm saying I've never heard.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I hear you now. My bad.
Yeah, so I am in the middle of something, but I can't answer the questions real quick. Kwame, yes, I consider myself black, given the definition of what black is, and the definition of what African is. Yeah, the only thing I identify as, though, is American. But the same way I'm 5 foot whatever, and the same way I weigh what I describe myself as weighing whatever I weigh. It's the same way I say I'm black or African. But in terms of an identifier, I'm American.
Well, okay.
Culture. In terms of my culture, like I have my culture is American because this is where I live. I think culture is tied to your nationality or your location.
Oh.
You cannot separate culture from a location. So in my view, there's no black culture because the culture of Africa is different everywhere. So I don't see this idea of a culture being tied to your race. I think culture is tied to your location or where you live or where you are. And I've been living in America for so long. My culture would have to be an American culture.
So parts of that I 100% agree. You can tie it to a nationality. America is an exception though, because again, that melting pot situation. That don't take away from the distinction of the different subsets of quote unquote American culture. So one of those subsets is Black American.
So is English American?
And then you got
is
Go
English
ahead.
black culture? Is English black culture?
Yeah.
How?
So is Creole. So is Gullah.
Explain.
Because we use certain, we use the general language of English, and created our own distinction in the English language.
So
you ain't learned well y'all. I don't know how old y'all is. Maybe I'm older.
Ebonics.
You know, it's a thing called Ebonics. Yeah. That's culture, bro. That's culture. It don't matter if it comes from somebody else or not.
But
when you take something and make it your own.
But no, the question is it black culture? Because if we didn't create the English language, then it's not.
It don't matter who created it, bro. I just gave the analogy of going in the woods. Just gave the analogy, bro.
See, let me just say this real quick, if y'all don't mind. I've always looked at Jamaican patois as a form of Ebonics. So, if American blacks don't have a culture because they speak Ebonics or they don't have their own culture, then I'm not sure what that says about. Well, that would say the same thing about Jamaica, because I don't think Jamaica has what can be classified as a distinct language. I think it's just a dialect. Most Jamaican patois words is just a broken English or a broken something. And I don't think that qualifies as a language in and of itself. So
American Dream is Duppy an Anglo-Saxon word?
Is duppy an Anglo-Saxon word? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's an Anglo-Saxon or if it goes back to Africa somewhere.
What about
somehow
Abia?
I think it's some form of broken something. Well, again, I don't think just these one-off words, Kwame, makes a language. I think a language is deeper than just having a one-off word where you're the only one that says that word. You know what I'm saying? Because I think
but also
as well.
But also morphology, like Medea and certain terms that we say is not like it's not English. The morphology is not the same as the English.
Yeah, I mean, it at the end of the day, it don't matter, bro. I don't care who you go to. Europe been doing this for millennia, bro. You think they just sprouted up out of the caves and just start doing it? No, bro. No, I mean, they've been every which way, north, south, east, and west in Europe, creating culture based off things from the past. It don't matter. Culture is what you make of it as the totality of the ethnic group. It don't matter where you got it from. I mean, that's asinine to think that. Like we just supposed to be some primordial type people coming up with stuff. I don't think it worked that way. But you know, it is what it is. That's why I keep saying cultural appropriation. If that's what you want to call it, bro. At this point, it is what. All I know is the ethnic group in it of itself is distinct, with an amalgamation of different things that were taken, whether sought or unsought. Okay, I got a deeper question. So, what is the distinction from African American and Jamaican American? In what context? In every context. Just name. Well, culturally we different. But I'm saying how? Like, just name a bunch of. What do you mean how? We just talked about language. We got our own form of English. Y'all got your own form of English. But like I said, I don't know nothing about no Jamaican. I grew up with either black or white. Y'all people got that. You know what I'm saying? So you're saying Jamaicans don't speak English? Is what you're saying? Yes, but again, we're talking about a globalized society. No, just because you speak English, but you speak another language, you're gonna distinct between the two, correct? Based on upbringing, situation, or whatever. If you come over here and then you speak the correct, I guess you would say the quote unquote correct American English terminologies and vernacular, you doing that based off a reason. But when you go home and you get in the recliner, you're gonna go back to patois, I guess. I don't know. So you're making distinctions based on commercial reasons or whatever situation may be. Understand that you're in a globalized society. Ain't nothing gonna change that. That's a fact. But culturally, you are distinct. But I'm asking you how. You're not really giving me a language, food, clothing, but all the different styles, but all the things you're naming, you're misidentifying my question by saying code. How is that a misidentification? How? Because you're making it seem as if Jamaicans don't eat the same food that we eat. That they don't. That don't mean it's my culture. No, I'll take a beef patty or two. It ain't my damn culture. But you just said that don't mean I can't. That don't mean that I can't indulge in the culture. That's crazy. But you just see, this is the one-dimensional thinking. When you say something is culture, we thinking like as if we can't be a part of it because we're not. Nobody ever said that. That's what you just said. You just said I could eat a bean. I could eat a but it's not my culture, and it's not your culture. Meaning that my lineage didn't help to sprout these things that I'm indulging in now. So you don't claim to be black. What the hell? Bro, again, culturally speaking, there's a distinction. We are the only people. What is the from a cultural? What is the distinction? You keep saying food, all this, but I mean, you said you Black American, right? I feel like you playing games with me.
I'm not.
Who raised you, man?
I'm not playing.
Who raised you, bro?
But see, look. American Dream does this to me all the time, and now
did mama raise you?
Yeah. No, my dad did actually.
Oh, okay, all right.
But no, I'm being serious. Like when I say this, when you make a claim saying that black culture is language and this and this and that, and then I ask, so if you eat a Jamaican beef patty, are you a part of black culture? And then you say no, it's distinct. It's distinct. How is it distinct?
The beef patty is distinct. The beef. Now, let's focus on the beef patty. The beef patty is distinct to Jamaican culture. That's just what it is. My mama, my grandma, they ain't make no beef patty. We ain't know nothing about no beef patty until the Jamaicans came to Georgia. When the Jamaicans came to Georgia, we discovered the beef patty, which was delicious. We said, damn, these Jamaicans make some good food. Distinction. The Jamaican food, the beef patty, is distinct to Jamaica. Jamaicans.
So if I eat a beef patty, I'm Jamaican, is what you saying?
Bro, that's like you playing with me, man. You playing with me, bro.
I'm asking you an honest question. This is what you're saying.
No, that does not make you Jamaican. No, it doesn't. So but that don't mean that you can't make the Jamaican beef. You can make the Jamaican beef patty yourself.
Then I'm practicing the culture, right?
If you want to say practice, that's fine. But it's not your culture.
But I'm practicing. This is my culture. If I'm making it.
Again, it's not your culture, bro. Okay. Now, I mean, this is crazy that we having this discussion. I ain't never heard nothing like this before.
It's no oneness. It's always supposed to be a oneness, but it's no oneness in today's culture. That's the problem. I mean, we want to misidentify with what is ours. We want to nitpick at what's ours. All of it's ours.
The beef patty ain't mine. How can the beef patty be mine if I never discovered the beef patty until the Jamaican showed me the beef patty?
It's black culture.
I don't think it worked like that, bro.
That. We don't see each other as our own.
M20, what's the definition of black?
What's the definition of black?
Yeah.
Well, per scientific racism, again, like I told you, sub-Saharan Africa.
What you mean scientific racism?
Well, that's where the originality of the term comes from in America.
I'm just asking, what is the definition of black?
I just
according to the Census Bureau, according to the Oxford Dictionary,
according to the
Cambridge
Census Bureau, black means a person from Africa, according to the Census Bureau.
Okay, so what is the Oxford or the Cambridge definition of black?
I ain't got that in front of me, bro. I'm in my truck, man.
It's basically the same thing. So what separates Jamaicans from or black people, black Americans, if we all black?
Culture.
But see, that's the problem that you making, man. You making a distinction amongst people.
I ain't got no choice but to make a distinction.
No, but we're all the same.
Hang on, Dex. Hang on. Can y'all hear me good? Am I low?
No, you good.
Dex, let me, because I'm trying to figure out exactly what y'all are disagreeing with him about. He seems to be clear on what he's saying.
I mean, I can't get no clear.
Yeah, we're all black, and what separates us is our culture and our culture is determined by where we're from, our location on the planet. But we're all black people. We all share the same color. But again,
Go ahead.
And again, let me just say that's why I don't like the term black culture, because Jamaican culture is different from American culture. Jamaican culture is different from Ghanaian culture. Like, we all have different cultures. So to say my culture is black culture, the first question I would ask is which one? Jamaican, Ghanaian?
That's what I was saying.
Well, American Dream, I would say this. It's nice to have that option to neglect the identity of black culture. I don't have that option because I was born. It's like Bane in The Dark Knight, bro. Y'all merely adopted. I was born in it, so I don't have the option to negate. Now, if you look at my logo,
no, hold on. I don't see. Hold on. I don't see the difference. Like, you're The same way a Jamaican, a black person in Jamaica, they're black and they have a Jamaican culture. You're black and you have an American culture. Like, what is the difference? Like, what are you missing? What disadvantage
the
are you
difference
at?
is American. It's easy to say American culture. It's easy to say that. It sounds nice. But again, America is the exception. We all know this. The distinctions take hold, ethnically speaking, racially speaking.
But there are distinctions in Jamaica as well. There all of that exists in Jamaica as well. There are different races in Jamaica.
Not under the extreme guise of white supremacy that we had here in United States of America. You know that.
Hold on. I've been speaking about reparations here for a good while now. And one of the things we know is that in Jamaica, they're fighting against colonialism. And that's their version of white supremacy. Whites, like their reparations claim, as certainly as your reparations claim is about white supremacy and systemic racism.
No, it's not.
No, systemic racism is a part of your claim.
Not a part of my claim, it ain't.
Systemic racism.
I told you what the
systemic racism is a part of the FBA and ADOS claim FBA, for. So but it is a part of the HR 40 claim for reparations. Right, and colonialism is a part of the Caribbean claim for reparations and the African claim as well. Colonialism is their version of white supremacy.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? Because the same thing you guys complain about with white supremacy and systemic racism is the same thing they say about colonialism. It's the same exact thing.
Okay, that's cool, and I concede to that point. What I would argue and say is the beast within itself, the United States, nothing was like it. Now, when it comes to reparations, again, like I said earlier when I was on, I don't claim reparations based off systemic racism and white supremacy. That's not me. I said legislation was put forth in order to give us our distinct claim for reparations, which was Civil Rights Act 1864, Freedmen's Bureau Act 1865. That's just me. Now, an argument can be made and you can have a debate on that. But when I'm saying what we had to take hold of as an American culture, which I agree with, it is an American culture, but the distinctions are put in place based on the certain situation that we were put through under the guise of said systemic racism and white supremacy.
Dude,
that's just what we didn't have a choice.
You're arguing with a mirror at this point because
you're right.
He just but he just simply said it's already distinct amongst the countries. American.
That's BS. It's not distinct amongst the countries. How can it be distinct? We're talking about the United States of America. All these different people.
You can't say you have black culture in America when it's black culture everywhere too.
Who's calling it black culture is what I'm saying. What historically, how was it identified? Was it identified as black culture historically? Just be honest.
Yep.
Oh my God. It wasn't, man. It wasn't.
He just gave you an example. He just said Haiti being black people.
I don't disagree with them being black. How did they identify
Haiti is called the first black republic to free themselves out of slavery.
How did they identify the culture? I mean, what are we talking about?
That's what we're telling you. We're telling you it's specifically identified by country, not by blackness. You know,
Haitian. Okay, Haitian. So you're saying country by country is Haitian, Jamaican, American, Ghanaian, Nigerian?
Yes, that is.
I'm saying through. So you don't even agree with that. So I don't even know why you're trying to make a point. What I'm saying is the subset of America. We're talking about specifically America. The subset. We are the only subset of the quote unquote American culture to identify under the guise of the scientific racial term black. We're the only ones.
But that's in America.
And I'm not even saying that we did it ourselves. It was put upon us. We just ran with it all this time.
But listen, you're saying only in America. What we're saying is it's everywhere else too. They do it everywhere else too.
So other black people in other countries are calling their culture black.
Thank you. Good question. Yes, that's the answer. Yes.
Like, again, you're gonna have to prove it.
Dude,
I ain't seen it.
He just proved it to you. He just said.
Telling me a black republic is not. Go ahead.
Have you ever listened to? Do you listen to reggae?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, if you listen to reggae,
but I know Saul King David was a black. I know about all that stuff.
Yeah, Sizzler got a song
speaking,
called Black Woman. Sizzler got a song called Black Woman and Child. Like it's all over our music, bro, and you can tell from our music that we identify as black.
Identify as black.
Yeah.
What do you identify your culture as?
The culture is Jamaican culture. But we identify as black people, and by black people we mean we have African ancestry.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'll leave it at this. Because like I said, we done did like 1,000 circles. If you go up to a black American at anywhere on any block, you can go out on your stoop right now and stop them. Hey, black man. What do you call your culture? Black American now. You know what they're gonna say. You know what they're gonna say. Whereas if you ask
what's the answer to that question? What are they gonna say?
They're gonna say black.
Black, okay. Just so we're on the same page. Go ahead.
Right. Whereas just not even consciously but subconsciously, if you ask any other person of immigrant African descent, Caribbean, whatever the situation may, subconscious, if you ask them, they gonna give the distinction based on nationality, just like Dick said. But if you notice though, I think white Americans don't say their culture is white culture. They say their culture is American culture. They say
it's right. No, the ones because there are Americans, there are white Americans. The same way there are black Americans who don't have ancestry in the Caribbean or claim to not have ancestry in Africa. There are white Americans who don't necessarily see themselves as Irish American or Welsh. They just see themselves as Americans. They've been here so long. They just see themselves as just straight American. And if you ask them, what's your culture? They're not going to say white culture. They're going to say American culture. And it's the same way. Yeah, that's a fact. And I think, but black people are less prone to do that. But I think the reason that is because of, it's kind of like black people are finding it really hard to be patriotic and to hold on to that, to America. Because of the legacy of slavery, black people would rather say they have a black culture than an American culture because they want to distance themselves from America. In a sense, they're not as. I think. Right. Yeah. I'm glad you don't. But I think that's the main difference. White folks are very patriotic. That's why they say they have an American culture, and that's more correct. And black people too have an American culture, but they would rather call it a black culture. But you know what I mean? It's not as if you say you have an American culture, that means you have a white culture. Because American culture, the same way Jamaican culture has pockets of just different types of things happening. There's the Rastafarian culture that's different from that certain type of dance hall culture that goes on. The same way there are differences, the same way different locations in Jamaica create different local cultures. It's the same way in America, there are different local cultures, but they're still all American cultures. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I mean? I don't see why black Americans, well, I do see why black Americans would rather say they have a black culture than an American culture, but simply because they don't love their country.
Listen very, very carefully.
Tell the youth them to be strong. You can't tell the youth them to preach wrongs. While you try it on these lands, just remember every man is equal. Yeah, each one teach one, and a father God him a the only done. So make we reason, smoke trees, span the ends, all the deep meds. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government now have no heart, them no care about poor people. Yeah, bigger heads no love people again. Them most than little of them. Me see friends now reason again. Vex through whistle a blame. What time it hurt me to see how the face deal with the eagle of them. Regular me see it a pain. Regular me see it a pain. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government now have no heart, them no care about poor people. Social commentary. Drop the one, your principle, you don't know. The global will come and do it. Some people life every day, it's stress. The high price from JPS, that topic is currently. Jah alone, him a go help you. We need food and we no healthy. We are feel the pain, beg you protect me. In a life we have no envy. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government now have no heart, them no care about poor people.
Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? What I deal with?
Recognize royalty, recognize it, recognize royalty. Gotta recognize it, recognize royalty. Like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty. I can feel, recognize royalty. I can see, recognize royalty. Now I recognize royalty. Royalty's eyes. Royalty. I can see, recognize royalty. I can love, recognize royalty. Now I recognize it. Royalty. I recognize passion.
Blessings once again. As usual, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. All of that helps. Blessings. So today I want to continue the conversation about slavery and whether America was built on slavery or not. My contention is that America was not built on slavery. And as usual, I'm gonna, just do a little bit of a chat GPT search and see what we can come up with. So the first question I'm gonna ask ChatGPT is, how was abolition of slavery in America inspired by the American Civil War? And it says the abolition of slavery in America was deeply shaped and ultimately accelerated by the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. The war turned from a fight to preserve the Union into a revolutionary conflict that led to the end of slavery. So the war did not start off to end slavery. The war started to preserve the Union and ultimately led up to a fight for the abolition of slavery. So let's just dive a little more into it. It says, here's how. Number one, slavery as the root cause of the war. The Civil War erupted over the expansion of slavery into new territories and states. So that is the root cause of the Civil War, was the expansion of slavery. The South wanted slavery to expand into
other states, including northern and western states, and the North did not want slavery to expand. And so for that reason, the South wanted to secede. It says Southern states seceded primarily to protect the institution of slavery, which they saw as vital to their economy and social order. So the expansion of slavery was vital to the South. Slavery had to expand outside of the states where it was legal in order for, the South to maintain its social order and its economy. It says the North initially fought to preserve the Union, not abolish slavery. So the South wanted to secede because the North did not want slavery to expand. And so the North was fighting to prevent the South from seceding while protecting their right to not have slavery expand. But I think the two are kind of one and the same. Like if there was no North, if the North was not trying to prevent slavery from expanding, the South would not have seceded. And it's because the South wanted to secede that the North went to war. And I think that should be pretty clear. So slavery is at the heart of it. Even though it says, it's to preserve the Union, they were preserving the Union because the South wanted to secede because of the North's position on the expansion of slavery. But let's read on a little more. Emancipation as a war strategy. As the war dragged on, Abraham Lincoln realized that abolishing slavery would weaken the Confederacy and give the North a moral cause. So it was as the war progressed that Lincoln, the idea of abolishing slavery became a war strategy, if you will. So even though abolishing slavery was not the original reason for the war, we can say that it was preventing the expansion of slavery that was the original cause for the war. And there has been movements to abolish slavery in the North since America gained its independence. From the birth of America, there were calls to end slavery. And so that has been a rallying cry in the North since the birth of the nation. And so Lincoln saw that as a moral cause and a way to rally the troops around, that idea of ending slavery, and not just stopping the expansion, but abolishing it. It says in 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing enslaved people in Confederate-held territories. This didn't free all slaves, but it shifted the war's focus and prevented European nations, especially Britain and France, from supporting the Confederacy. Yeah, and that's very interesting. So apparently the British and French had apparently already ended slavery or abolished slavery in their respective countries. And so that was a way for Lincoln to get the British and the French to sympathize with their cause, or at least to not support the South. Black troops and public sentiment. Nearly 200,000 Black men served in the Union Army and Navy after emancipation became a war aim. So after emancipation became a war aim, the goal was to end slavery. It says nearly 200,000 Black men served in the Union Army and Navy after emancipation became a war aim. So Lincoln's strategy apparently worked, and that may have been a part of his strategy, was to get more Black men to serve. And a way to do that is to promise them the end of slavery. And so the Black men that served were fighting to end slavery. Expansion, not allowing the expansion of slavery apparently wasn't enough of a impetus for Black men to fight. They were willing to fight only for the emancipation of slaves. And, you know, they weren't concerned with preserving the Union if it meant preserving slavery. Their goal was the emancipation of slavery. And, you know, I don't think anyone can argue against that. It says their service helped change public opinion in the North, showing the capability, loyalty, and humanity of Black Americans. So even though abolition and the abolition movement was going on in the North since the inception of the nation, or from the beginning, public opinion about Black people was not very high. And the fact that they were willing to serve in the army helped to, you know, raise public opinion about Blacks. And it says it also increased pressure for total abolition. Legal abolition in the 13th Amendment. Legal abolition, the 13th Amendment. The war created a political climate in which abolition could finally succeed nationwide. In 1865, before the war ended, Congress passed the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in all U.S. states and territories. The war made this possible by defeating the pro-slavery South, changing the national conversation about freedom and citizenship, giving political power to anti-slavery Republicans. So the war was really the starting point of that new conversation about freedom, about citizenship and who deserves citizenship. And it really cemented the Republican Party in America. Their whole anti-slavery movement, the Republican Party was pretty much born out of the anti-slavery movement. So in summary, ChatGPT says the Civil War didn't start to end slavery, but it made abolition inevitable. It didn't start to end slavery. It started to prevent the expansion of slavery, not to end it, but it later on, abolition was inevitable. It says the war exposed the centrality of slavery to Southern rebellion. It empowered abolitionist forces in government and society, and it created the conditions for the 13th Amendment, which formally ended slavery. Without the Civil War, slavery likely would have continued for decades or ended in a much more gradual, compromised way. So again, slavery was central to the South in terms of its role in the war or its participation in the war. The South wanted to secede for one reason only: slavery, to protect slavery. And not just to protect the slavery that already existed there, they wanted to expand slavery, because without that expansion, they wouldn't survive. So they had to survive, to expand in order to survive. And the North did not want that expansion. But the war exposed that centrality of slavery to the Southern Rebellion. Now, the next question I'm gonna ask ChatGPT is, why did Southern states want slavery to expand to new territories? It says Southern states wanted slavery to expand into new U.S. territories for several interconnected economic, political, and social reasons. Economic interests. Cotton agriculture and other plantation other plantation crops like sugar and tobacco depended heavily on slave labor. Southern elites believed expanding slavery would allow them to extend their agricultural empire, particularly into fertile Western lands. New territories meant more land, more slaves, and more profit, especially as soil in the older Southern states became exhausted. That kind of explains economically why the South wanted to to expand slavery into those western and other northern states. They wanted to create that agricultural empire, and where they were, the land they were working was just becoming exhausted, so they needed new land for the cotton agriculture that for the most part their economy was centered around. 2, political power. The South feared being outnumbered in Congress by free states. By turning new territories into slave states, the South could maintain balance in the Senate and protect pro-slavery laws. They saw abolitionist movements and Northern population growth as threats to their way of life and needed to preserve national influence. Yeah, so that was another reason to expand into the West and Northern states, just for political power. They were outnumbered in Congress. So in order to fix that problem, they had to get land elsewhere and have representation and have just a greater representation in Congress. The next thing it mentions is the protection of the institution. Slavery's survival depended on expansion. If confined, it would become politically vulnerable and possibly be outlawed. Many Southern leaders believed slavery had to grow or die. They feared being surrounded by free states, which could inspire enslaved people to rebel or flee. Yeah, I think all of that is pretty straightforward. Yeah, they just couldn't be surrounded by all of these free states. If you're surrounded by all of these free states that are filled with abolitionists, at some point, the institution would have to die. So it was either grow or die, as it says. Number 4, ideological beliefs. Many Southerners viewed slavery not as a necessary evil, but as a positive good, a natural and divinely sanctioned order. Expanding slavery was seen as spreading civilization, especially in contrast to the free labor model in the North, which they criticized as exploitative. So they literally saw free labor model, the idea of the free market and the idea of people being paid for their work. They saw that as exploitative. That, I guess that's the same communist idea of the exploitation of workers. I'm wondering if that's the type of exploitation they were talking about, or if they were specifically talking about exploitation of Black people. I don't think they were talking about exploitation of the slave. I think they were talking more about exploitation of white workers and that free labor, that's what free labor represented. The next thing, fear of being marginalized. The rapid industrialization and population boom in the North meant the South was becoming a political minority. Expansion was a way to preserve the Southern way of life, which was built around slavery. So yeah, industrialization had a lot to do with the fears that Southerners had in terms of, their way of life being threatened, because industrialization came along with the idea of free labor, and that idea ran counter to what the South saw as important to their well-being. So in summary, ChatGPT says Southern states wanted slavery to expand to protect their economy, preserve political power, and secure the long-term survival of the slave system. The refusal of the North to allow slavery's expansion was one of the key factors that led to secession and the Civil War. Next question. And let me read that last sentence again. It says, the refusal of the North to allow slavery's expansion was one of the key factors that led to secession and the Civil War. And that just reiterates what we've been saying. It was the idea of not having slavery expand was the central point, or the central idea around why the South wanted to secede. Next question I asked is, why did the North not want slavery to expand? And it says the North opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories for moral, economic, and political reasons, but not always because Northerners were abolitionists. Here's a breakdown. Free labor ideology. Many Northerners believed in the superiority of free labor, where workers were paid wages and had the potential for social mobility. They feared that the spread of slavery would undermine the value of free labor, allow wealthy slaveholders to dominate the economy, and prevent small farmers and working class whites from competing fairly. So I guess they had their own interest. You know, a lot of the Northerners weren't necessarily concerned with, you know, freeing the slaves. They were more concerned with their own personal interests in terms of their jobs and their wages and being able to compete. They didn't feel they were able to compete against these slave owners who, you know, just had all these slaves that when they rented them out, if you will, when they rented them out, they could rent them out at a much lower wages to the slave owners, that is, than white folks could compete with. The free labor of, or the wages that these white workers were demanding was higher than the wages that slave owners would demand for their slaves. And so those white folks were against that. And it reminds me of what's going on even today with immigration, you know. The idea, even today, with the immigration happening in America, the idea is that immigrants are willing to work for way lower wages, and that's undercutting, you know, the wages of Americans, and just how much they're being paid for work. When illegals come in and are willing to do that work for so much cheaper, they just cannot compete with that. And so the idea is kind of similar. The next thing is political balance. And again, we're talking about why the North was against expansion. But it says Northerners worried that adding more slave states would give the South more power in the Senate and Electoral College. So the same concern that the South had, they wanted more power and the North did not want them to have it. They wanted to limit slavery's influence over federal laws and prevent a pro-slavery majority in Congress. Next, it says there was a moral opposition, especially among abolitionists. While most Northerners were not abolitionists, a growing number, especially in the 1930s to the 50s, viewed slavery as morally wrong. The abolitionist movement gained traction in churches, newspapers, and politics, pressuring leaders to oppose slavery's expansion. But again, I will say abolition and the abolition movement has been around since the inception of the country. And, you know, it may not have been in large numbers, but as time went by, and especially leading up to the Civil War and during the Civil War, the number of people opposing, particularly the expansion of slavery, grew, and then even opposing, being in favor of the abolition of slavery, that the numbers of people also grew. Number 4, another reason they didn't want slavery to expand was the fear of a slave power conspiracy. Many Northerners believed Southern elites were trying to nationalize slavery and dominate U.S. politics. Events like the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 and the Dred Scott decision in 1857 convinced them that the South wanted to force slavery on the entire nation. And again, as we read before, they were opposed to that because it ran counter to the idea of free labor and industrialization. The next reason they didn't want slavery to expand was the desire to preserve the West for whites. Some Northern opposition was not racially progressive. They wanted to reserve the new Western territories for white settlers only, free of both enslaved Black people and free Black people. Wow, that's interesting. So they didn't want slavery to expand simply because they didn't want Black people there, whether they were slaves or not. And that one is very interesting. They feared that the presence of slavery would make the West socially and economically unstable. Yeah, so it had nothing to do with, a moral stance against slavery. They just wanted to preserve an all-white state, if you will. And in summary, it says the North opposed the expansion of slavery because it conflicted with their economic model, political interests, and increasingly moral values. While not all Northerners wanted slavery abolished immediately, most did not want it to grow. And this division became a major cause of the Civil War. In summary, and again, the idea is that, is America built on slavery? And my position is that no, America is not built on slavery. If anything, America is built on ending slavery. It's after the abolition of slavery that I think America really started. And the vision of America from the Northern position, from the position of the North, America was about industrialization and free labor, and slavery went counter to that vision of America. And so they opposed the expansion of slavery, and then they just wanted to end it. And let's keep in mind that this is not very far removed from the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War, I think itself, is what sparked a lot of the abolition movement, because the idea of freedom that was fought for in the Revolutionary War, I think abolitionists tried to hold America accountable to that idea of freedom that they fought for, and they felt that idea of freedom should be extended to all human beings, not just whites. And so the Revolutionary War itself is what sparked the idea of ending slavery, in my view. And then the Civil War is what kind of cemented it. So again, and in closing, I will say that America is absolutely not built on slavery. We can argue that America began after the Civil War, and if that is true, then America is not built on slavery. America is built on ending slavery. And without ending slavery, we would not have the America that we have today, all the freedoms that we value as Americans. All the American values today that we value would not exist if slavery continued to exist. And so America as we know it is not built on slavery. America as we know it is built on ending slavery. It's built on free labor. It's built on industrialization. And yeah, I think that should be pretty clear. So, without saying too much more, I think we'll just end it there. And only thing left to say is to please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Again, all of that helps to build a channel. So, just do it. Just do it. All right. Catch you on the next one. Peace.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say from the motherland in bondage and chains. Bury our culture and change our names. They claim we're free, yet we are in pain. As long as there's life, there's a lot to gain. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. When God spoke his words, they said he was deranged. Marley sung his songs, they said the same. Malcolm X and Martin Luther fought relentlessly so we could be better. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Brought us from the motherland in bondage and chains. Bury our culture and change our names. They claim we're free, yet we are in pain. As long as there's life, there's a lot to gain. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise. Just because we're black, they say we are slaves. Speak of righteousness, they say we are praise.
Like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind.
I just want to do a little bit of reading. I want to do a little bit of chat GPTing about Assata Shakur and just ask chat GPT what her legacy is best described as. And that's pretty much what I want to talk about. I've seen the difference in the reaction to her death compared to the reaction to Charlie Kirk's death from the Black community and FBA in particular. They've been very mournful of the passing of Assata Shakur, but could really care less about Charlie Kirk's passing. They kind of actually cheered it on, if you will. They cheered on Charlie Kirk's death, but mourn for Assata Shakur. And we want to talk about kind of why that is and what the implications of that is. So we just want to talk about that a little bit. So, as usual, we are going to do a little bit of chat GPTing. And I asked chat GPT, who is Assata Shakur? And it says Assata Shakur, born Joanne Deborah Byron, later Chesimard in 1947, is a prominent figure in Black liberation history. She was a member of the Black Panther Party, BPP, and later the Black Liberation Army, BLA, during the late 1960s and 1970s. Her background. And I guess, the fact that she's a member of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army right out
the gate kind of tells us why FBA would support her and mourn for her. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. But her background: she was born in Queens, New York. She grew up facing racial and gender discrimination, which shaped her activism. She joined the Black Panther Party in the late 1960s, where she became involved in community programs and organizing. Later, she became part of the Black Liberation Army, a more militant underground group that split from the Panthers and advocated armed struggle against systemic racism and police brutality. Yeah, so she was a radical. She was definitely a radical Black activist who kind of went as far as she felt she wanted to go or needed to go with her activism. She was a strong activist and a committed activist to her cause. But let's kind of go into and see what her cause and what her cause was, I guess. Legal cases and escape. In 1973, Shakur was involved in a shootout on the New Jersey Turnpike with state troopers. One officer, Werner Forster, was killed, as well as a BLA, Black Liberation Army member. So she was a strong activist. She went all out. You know, she wasn't afraid to do whatever she felt was necessary for the freedom of her people. It goes on to say Shakur was wounded, arrested, and later convicted of murder. Though her supporters argue she was unfairly targeted, citing weak evidence and political persecution by the FBI's COINTELPRO program. In 1979, with help from allies, she escaped from prison and eventually fled to Cuba, where she was granted political asylum. So, you know, she was, I guess, a political refugee, if you will. And again, you know, everything that can be said by America to be negative, I guess Assata Shakur was involved with. I mean, this is deep stuff off the bat. In a shootout with police, one police was shot and killed, and she escaped prison and fled to Cuba. Like, that is some gangster type stuff. Yeah, that's real gangster. You know, and again, that would also explain why FBA would support her, because, you know, FBA culture is hip hop gang culture. So they really admire that type of thing in their Black activists, where, you know, they go all out and can be said to be gangster, even, where they take it to the limit, you know. But it says her life in Cuba. So she escaped from prison and fled to Cuba. Her life in Cuba. In Cuba, she has lived in exile since the 1980s, continuing to write and speak on issues of race, justice, and oppression. She wrote an autobiography, Assata, an autobiography in 1987, which has become influential in Black radical and activist circles. U.S. government status. The FBI lists her as one of the most wanted terrorists and has a $2 million reward for her capture. The Cuban government has repeatedly refused U.S. demands to extradite her, seeing her as a political refugee. In short, Assata Shakur is both a symbol of resistance and liberation to many activists, and a fugitive terrorist in the eyes of the U.S. government. And I think
that's kind of, the reason why FBA can put support behind her and, mourn for her, is because she is a symbol of resistance and liberation for them. And also because she's seen as a fugitive terrorist in the U.S., from the U.S. government's perspective. Whatever the U.S. government is against, Black people tend to be more for. The U.S. government is against it, Black folks is for it, for the most part. So let's continue and see what else it says about her. So the next question I asked is, was she a Pan-Africanist? I know she was a rebel, if you will, even considered to be a domestic terrorist. But was she a Pan-Africanist? And ChatGPT says yes. Assata Shakur has been associated with Pan-Africanist thought, though she wasn't primarily a Pan-African theorist like W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, or Kwame Nkrumah. The Pan-African influence in her politics, solidarity with Africa and the diaspora. In her speeches and writings, she often framed the Black struggle in the U.S. as part of a larger global fight against colonialism, imperialism, and racism. Cuban exile and Pan-African networks. Living in Cuba, she connected with African, Caribbean, and Latin American revolutionaries, which deepened her global perspective. Her autobiography. She reflects on the interconnectedness of oppressed peoples worldwide, aligning with Pan-Africanist ideas of unity. And, I think this kind of hits at the heart of why I find it hard to be a Pan-Africanist. There are a bunch of reasons, but this here is absolutely one of the main reasons, because, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist movements always seem to find themselves tied into what can be labeled as, terrorist organizations against America. They see themselves as liberation movements, but they can be seen as terrorist organizations. And for that reason, it's very difficult for me to consider myself a Pan-Africanist. I think I'm too patriotic to see myself as a Pan-Africanist. But notable Pan-Africanist elements: she supported liberation struggles in Africa, such as Angola and South Africa, and saw them linked to Black struggles in the U.S. She emphasized the shared identity of African-descended peoples as part of one struggle. She's often cited in Pan-Africanist and Black liberation literature as an example of diaspora resistance. In short, while not a formal Pan-Africanist leader, Assata Shakur's worldview and activism clearly clarified Pan-Africanist themes, connecting the African-American fight for liberation with African and global struggles against oppression. So she surely was a Pan-Africanist. So this is one Pan-Africanist that FBA can support. Granted that she was a Pan-Africanist, they still support her. They don't support Pan-Africanism, but they will support Assata. And the reason they'll support Assata, I believe, is because of, her other activist leanings, her more socialist, Black Panther, leftist type of leanings are, in my view, the main reason why FBA, which are foundational Black Americans, that to me is the main reason they support her, is because of she was left-leaning, not because of her Pan-Africanism. And then I asked, was she a communist? And it says, Assata Shakur was not formally a member of the Communist Party, but her politics were deeply influenced by Marxist, socialist, and anti-imperialist ideas. So again, I think
that's, the same as the Black Panther Party. I think the BLA, the Black Liberation Army, I think that was the main leanings of those groups. They were mainly a left, Marxist, socialist type of people, and that was what their ideology was based in. Why people connect her to communism, the Black Panther Party influence. The Panthers studied Marxism, Leninism, and Maoism, blending those ideas with Black liberation struggles. Assata absorbed this political education. The Black Liberation Army, BLA, the BLA, which he later joined, adopted an explicitly revolutionary, anti-capitalist stance, arguing that capitalism and imperialism were inseparable from racism in the US. So this FBA supports her not because of her Pan-Africanism, but because of her revolutionary anti-capitalism, that left-leaning socialist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist movement is what FBA supports, and why they mourn for Assata. And it's very interesting to me because, FBA claimed to have built this country. They claim that everything having to do with this country was built by them. But I guess it's everything except the capitalism, because they're anti-capitalist. They support left-leaning anti-capitalists who want to see America destroyed, because that was a part of Assata Shakur's mission, was destroying this this capitalist imperialist state. So, I find it very difficult to understand how FBA claimed to have built this country, but they support anyone who aims to destroy it. And that's a hint to me that they really did not. They really didn't build this country. They could not have. You build this country, there's no way you're going to be so invested or vested in destroying it, or supporting people who are vested in destroying it. And Black people in America throughout the centuries have always sided and supported people that want to destroy America and see it as a systemically racist, white supremacist country. But somehow they built it. They built the country, but they want to destroy it, which is just interesting to me. Her writings, in Assata, an autobiography, she often critiques capitalism, describing it as exploitative and tied to the oppression of Black people and colonized nations. So again, America has always been a capitalist country, so FBA could not have built this country. No way could they have built this country, because they've always felt that the capitalism that this country is built around, or which is the foundation of this country. Capitalism is the foundation of this country. So Black people cannot be foundational because they don't like capitalism. They've never appreciated American capitalism for the most part. The Black Power movement is centered around, anti-capitalist ideology. Her position, she didn't brand herself strictly as a communist, but rather as a revolutionary, socialist, and Pan-Africanist. A revolutionary. When they say they're revolutionary, that means their whole thing is change. They want to bring about change. And in this respect, it's changing America and everything that America represents. That's fundamentally what FBA is also about. Her worldview blended Black nationalism, socialism, and third world liberation politics, much like other radical Black activists of her time. Yeah, most of the Black activists during the Black Power movement were absolutely anti-capitalists.
and can be seen as black nationalists who wanted to separate from America and kind of create their own black socialist state, if you will. And I think that's also the goal of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism, I think, fundamentally wants to create, kind of a socialist African state, and if not an African state, a socialist African union. ChatGPT suggested that I look at a breakdown of how her economic views compared with those of the Panthers and other 1970s radicals. And I said, okay, let's hear it. Assata Shakur's economic views, anti-capitalist stance. She consistently argued that U.S. capitalism was built on slavery, land theft, and systemic racism. And U.S. capitalism, again, is the foundation of America, which again is another hint that FBA did not build America. FBA is more interested in breaking America down and destroying America than building America. The link between racism and economics. In her view, racism wasn't just about prejudice, but a tool of economic exploitation. Cheap labor, prison labor, segregated housing markets, etc. Socialism as an alternative. She praised socialist systems like Cuba for guaranteeing healthcare, education, and basic needs, contrasting this with U.S. inequality. And again, I think this is true of the majority, if not all, of those Black Power activists of her time. Global solidarity. She tied Black struggles to anti-colonial struggles in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, where socialist movements were fighting imperialism. So even though FBA are strictly against Pan-Africanism, Assata Shakur was a strong Pan-Africanist who saw her connection to Africa and respected her connection to Africa and saw Africa as part of her vision, her vision of how to conquer imperialism. The Black Panther Party, survival programs. The BPP launched free breakfast programs, health clinics, and education initiatives. Practical examples of socialist ideas applied to Black communities. Marxist-Leninist influence. Leaders like Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver studied Marx, Lenin, and Mao. They saw capitalism as the root of racial oppression. Economic critique. Panthers argued that Black people could never achieve freedom under U.S. capitalism, since the system relied on exploitation and racial divisions. And again, this system could not have been created by Blacks. Community control. They emphasized taking control of local resources, land, and institutions to build self-determined Black communities. And I think those self-determined Black communities are communities that's based in socialist ideals. Other 1970s radicals, Black radicals, Nation of Islam. Unlike Shakur and the Panthers, the NOI wasn't Marxist. They leaned toward Black capitalism, building independent Black-owned businesses as a path to liberation. The SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, under Stokely Carmichael or Kwame Ture, by the late 1960s, SNCC turned toward Pan-Africanism and socialism, seeing U.S. capitalism as inseparable from imperialism. The Republic of New Africa, RNA, called for land reparations and an independent Black nation in the U.S. South. Their vision combined nationalism and socialism. So the key differences, Shakur and BPP, or the Black Panthers, they both saw socialism as essential to Black liberation, linking community needs to systemic change. The NOI promoted moral reform and Black enterprise, not socialism. Pan-Africanists like Kwame Ture
connected U.S. struggles with global socialist revolutions, aligning closely with Assata's outlook. In summary, Assata Shakur's economic views aligned most with the Panthers and global socialist movements, anti-capitalist, pro-socialist, and anti-imperialist. She diverged from groups like the NOI, who emphasized black capitalism instead of socialism. So again, I think this kind of explains why FBA would mourn Assata Shakur, but cheer for the death of Charlie Kirk, because where Charlie Kirk was absolutely a capitalist, absolutely an American patriot who valued American values, Assata Shakur was the flip of that. She was an anti-American, anti-capitalist, pro-socialism individual. And Black Americans tend more to lean towards the anti-American side of the coin than the patriotic side of the coin for whatever reason. And again, that's why they could not have created this country. They fight too hard. Black Americans fight way too hard against what America stands for to have been the people to have created this country. And just to kind of go into, I guess I wanted a more in-depth explanation as to how much the Black Panthers and the BLA were against the American way of life. So I asked ChatGPT, how were they funded? Who was funding the BPP? And it said, good question. Funding was a constant challenge for both the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. And the way they raised money reflected their different strategies. The Black Panther Party, the BPP operated as a political and community-based organization. So its funding was a mix of legitimate fundraising and donations. Membership dues. Panthers paid small dues to support the organization. Community donations. Local businesses and sympathetic individuals donated food, supplies, and money to support Panther programs like the Free Breakfast for Children program, free health clinics, and housing initiatives. Fundraising events. They sold newspapers, the Black Panther, and organized rallies, concerts, and speaking tours to raise funds. Alliances with celebrities. High-profile supporters like Marlon Brando, Jane Fonda, Leonard Bernstein, and Harry Belafonte sometimes donated money or helped raise awareness. International solidarity. Some funds and resources also came from sympathetic groups abroad. For example, from revolutionary movements and governments that opposed U.S. imperialism. And that's pretty much what I was kind of looking to see, if there were any foreign investment into the BPP from people that would be considered to be enemies of America. And I think it's obvious that there absolutely were. They said, these were coming from revolutionary movements, which I would presume are movements or groups that the U.S. government would consider terrorist organizations. So I'm not surprised at all. It says the FBI's COINTEL program often tried to disrupt these revenue streams, pressuring businesses not to donate and targeting fundraising events. The Black Liberation Army. The BLA operated clandestinely, underground, and rejected traditional fundraising, relying instead on illegal means to sustain itself. Bank robberies or expropriations. They believed seizing money from banks was justified, since banks were seen as institutions of capitalist exploitation. Yeah, the BLA was next level. Like, these guys went all out. Armored car robberies. Notably, the BLA carried out several high-profile armed robberies in the 1970s. Support networks. Sympathetic activists and underground networks provided housing, food, and safe houses, though less openly for the BPP, for the Black Panthers. International support. While smaller than the BPP, the BLA had ties to international revolutionary movements, including in Cuba, which sometimes provided safe harbor more than direct funds. And I guess that kind of helped her to get extradited to Cuba, or, you know, for her to escape and get welcomed into Cuba with just all of those revolutionary ties that she had there. Because of this reliance on armed actions, the BLA was heavily pursued by law enforcement and quickly fragmented under FBI pressure. So the key contrast is that the BPP tried to operate as a legitimate political organization with above-ground funding, though harassed by the state. The BLA operated as a guerrilla underground, relying on robberies and clandestine support. In summary, the BPP was sustained by donations, dues, fundraising events, and some international solidarity, while the BLA funded itself primarily through armed robberies and underground support networks. So the next question I asked is, were the international revolutionary movements that supported them, were they socialist groups? And it says yes. The international revolutionary movements that supported the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Army were overwhelmingly socialist, Marxist, or anti-imperialist groups. Their support came less from liberal allies in the West and more from countries and movements aligned with the global socialist and anti-colonial struggle of the Cold War era. So these were groups that are, you know, that splintered off after, I guess, Russia broke apart. But that Cold War continued, I believe, afterwards, with people and organizations still trying to infiltrate and destroy America from within. And I think the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army were all part of that movement to destroy America. I think hip hop was also a part of that movement to destroy America. Yeah. And so, again, Assata Shakur is supported, valued, and mourned by FBA for just that reason, because she was attempting to destroy America. And FBA, as much as they claim to have built America, will do anything to support people who want to destroy it. Go figure. The Black Panther Party's international support. The Panthers built explicit ties with socialist and anti-colonial movements abroad. In China, the BPP admired Mao Zedong's writings and drew from Maoist strategies. Chinese officials offered symbolic support, printing materials, and expressing solidarity. In Algeria, the BPP set up an international office in Algiers in 1969, which became a hub for connections with liberation groups. Vietnam. So look, these people had a lot of international support from countries that were not our friends in any way, shape, or form. Vietnam. The Panthers expressed solidarity with the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War, seeing parallels between U.S. imperialism abroad and racism at home. Cuba. Panthers visited Havana, where Cuba welcomed U.S. black radicals as part of its revolutionary internationalism. African liberation movements. They connected with groups fighting colonialism in Angola, the MPLA, in Mozambique, the FRELIMO, in Guinea-Bissau and South Africa, ANC and the PAC. Next, the Black Liberation Army. International links. The BLA was smaller and underground, but it drew support from some of the same networks. Cuba. Cuba offered asylum to Assata Shakur and other exiles. Cuba saw them as part of the global anti-imperialist struggle. Algeria, some BLA members connected with Panthers in Algiers, though the BLA was less organized internationally. Palestinian groups, there were reported contacts with Palestinian liberation movements who shared training and ideology. African liberation fronts, the BLA expressed solidarity, though their capacity to materially link up was limited compared to the Panthers, while these guys were linked with Palestinian groups. And we all know the Palestinian organizations are quite anti-African, anti-American. Palestinians are down with Israel and down with America. So the Black Panthers, the Black Liberation Army, and Assata Shakur with her membership were all anti-American, anti-capitalist individuals or groups, if you will. But that's what was their main motivation, was being revolutionary and trying to bring about the destruction of imperialism, and the biggest imperialist of them all, which is the United States of America. Why socialist movements back them? Anti-imperialism. Both the BPP and BLA framed the US not just as racist, but as the world's leading imperialist power. Shared ideology. Marxist, socialist, and Pan-African movements saw the struggles of Black Americans as part of a global class and colonial struggle. Cold War context, supporting U.S. radicals was a way for socialist states like Cuba, China, USSR to challenge American legitimacy. There you have it. Their main goal was to make America illegitimate. And why would the people who claim they built this country be the first people to support any movement to illegitimize that same country that they claim they created from the ground up? They claim that everything about America, they did it. But everything about America, they want to destroy. So in summary, yes, the international allies of the BPP and BLA were overwhelmingly socialist, anti-imperialist, and anti-colonial movements. The support came from places like Cuba, China, Algeria, Vietnam, and African liberation fronts, all of which saw U.S. Black radicals as part of the same worldwide struggle against colonialism and capitalism. Isn't that something? So I wanted to ask ChatGPT one other question, because most of what they listed in terms of the international support so far have been non-white countries. So I asked, did BPP or BLA get support from European revolutionary groups? And it says yes, both the Black Panther Party and to a lesser extent the BLA received support or solidarity from European revolutionary and leftist groups during the late 1960s and 70s. The Black Panther Party and Europe. The BPP was internationally visible and built ties with radical European movements. In Britain, the British Black Panther movement, founded in London in 1968, modeled itself directly after the US Panthers. Figures like Darcus Howe and Olive Morris drew heavily on BPP ideology. Support also came from segments of the British left, especially Trotskyist and socialist organizations. In France, French student radicals from the May 1968 uprising expressed solidarity with the Panthers. The French left often linked US racism to colonialism in Africa and the Caribbean. In Germany, the Red Army faction and other militant groups saw the Panthers as part of the global anti-imperialist struggle. Panthers had contacts with German students and leftists involved in anti-NATO and anti-Vietnam War activism. In Scandinavia, radical groups in Sweden and Denmark raised money for Panther survival programs and gave platforms for exiled Panthers to speak. International conferences. Panthers sent representatives to events like the 1969 Pan-African Cultural Festival in Algiers, where they connected with European leftists, African liberation movements, and socialist states. The Black Liberation Army and Europe. The BLA was smaller and underground, so it had fewer open ties. But sympathizers in Britain, France, and Germany, especially among student radicals, offered rhetorical support. Some radical European groups, like the RAF in Germany and the Irish Republican Army, shared tactics and, in some cases, contacts with BLA-linked activists. However, unlike the Panthers, the BLA never built broad international offices or public networks in Europe. Why European groups supported them? Anti-imperialist unity. European radicals often viewed the US as the center of global imperialism. The Panthers and BLA represented resistance from within. Race and colonialism. For Europeans from colonial powers, Britain, France, Portugal, the US Black struggle echoed African and Caribbean liberation struggles. Counterculture solidarity. Many youth movements, especially after 1968, looked to the Panthers as models of militant resistance. Yeah, so it seems to me that, the Europeans, even though they kind of, labeled their movement as, and their support for these movements in America, they supported them as the US Black struggle that echoed African and Caribbean liberation struggles. And I think the reason they echoed them is because these struggles were pro-socialist struggles. So I think that mainly what those Europeans were concerned with, because these were mainly leftist socialist groups, their main concern was not with the freedom of blacks, but with getting socialism in place and promoting socialist ideals. I think that is fundamentally what they were interested in. So in summary, it says the BPP actively built ties with European revolutionary groups, from Britain's Black Panthers to Germany's RAF and broader socialist movements across Europe. The BLA, being underground, had looser connections, but still drew sympathy from radical groups who saw them as part of the global anti-imperialist fight. I then asked, did BLA or BPP work with or get support from international terrorist groups? And ChatGPT says this is a sharp question because the line between revolutionary movements and what the US government labeled as terrorist groups was very blurry during the Cold War. The short answer, yes, both the BPP and to a smaller degree the BLA had ties with armed revolutionary groups abroad, many of which were branded as terrorist by the US and its allies. So again, FBA, Black Power movements, for whatever reason, always tend to put their support behind leftist, Marxist, terrorists, organizations that promote terrorism within America because their goal is the destruction of that imperialist, capitalist, colonialist system which exists in America. And not to keep repeating myself, but FBA, Foundational Black Americans, did not build this capitalist, imperialist, colonialist system that they always tend to want to destroy. That's a contradiction that they will never, in my view, be able to rectify. The Black Panther Party. The BPP saw itself as part of a global anti-imperialist front, not an isolated U.S. group. They built ties with Algerian National Liberation Front, the FLN. The Panthers opened an international office in Algiers with FLN support. Algeria gave safe haven to exiled revolutionaries from many countries. And exiled revolutionaries are people that committed terrorist acts elsewhere. Algeria just brought them in. And a number of these people may have been Americans and Black Panther Party members, because, you know, Assata Shakur herself was exiled in Cuba. And she, you know, what she did to get arrested, involved with the murder of that police officer, those types of things can be seen as terrorist, and I think they may have been. Palestinian groups, the PLO and PFLP, Panthers expressed solidarity with the Palestinian struggle. Some Panthers in Algiers and elsewhere met with Palestinian groups like the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, who were labeled as terrorists by the US and Israel. Cuban revolutionaries. Cuba welcomed Panthers and offered training, political asylum, and international legitimacy. Cuba was often accused by the US of supporting terrorism worldwide. Vietnamese communists, the Viet Cong or North Vietnam, Panthers expressed solidarity and exchanged delegations with Vietnamese representatives during the war. The Black Liberation Army. The BLA was smaller, underground, and more militant. Its international ties were fewer, but they did exist. In Cuba granted asylum to Assata Shakur and other exiled BLA members. Havana saw them as part of the global fight against US imperialism. Palestinian fighters, reports especially from the FBI, and let me just say where Havana saw them as part of the global fight against US imperialism. For the most part, I think blacks in America, the black people in America, just saw the Black Panthers as people that were just interested in the local black struggle and the freedom of Black Americans. But, you know, their goal, and absolutely the goal of those international groups and even countries that supported them was bigger than that. It wasn't just about the black struggle. It was more about an anti-imperialist, pro-socialism movement, a pro-Marxist, Leninist movement. Palestinian fighters, reports, especially from the FBI, suggested that some Black Liberation Army members sought or received training with Palestinian groups in the Middle East during the 70s. Whether this was widespread or limited remains debated, but the ideological connection was real. Other armed movements. There were ideological affinities with groups like the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, or the Red Army faction in Germany, though hard evidence of joint operations is thin. The US government's framing. To the US state, any armed revolutionary ally, whether African Liberation Fronts, Palestinian fighters, or Cuban communists, could be branded as terrorists. To the BPP and BLA, these were legitimate liberation movements, fighting the same imperialist system oppressing Black Americans. Now, you know, my take on it as the American dream and as someone who values capitalism, I think from my view, capitalism promotes freedom more than socialism or communism ever can. And capitalism has been proven to work to free people and take people out of poverty way more than socialism or communism ever have. So from just an ideological perspective, just comparing capitalism to socialism, I'm a capitalist. And I think the values of capitalism are more linked with the values of freedom and individual freedom than socialism. Socialism is not about individual freedom in any way. And so for that reason alone, I am pro-capitalist. And so for that reason alone, I am more prone to support the US state. You know, all of this other talk about colonialism and imperialism, I'm not interested in that context. I'm interested in their work as capitalist, because I think, you know, the colonialism and the imperialism part, I think they claim it kind of comes out of capitalism. I think their view is that colonialism and imperialism are products of capitalism. So capitalism is at the heart of really what they're against. That's why Pan-Africanists are also anti-capitalist. I think that's the heart of what they're fighting against, is capitalism. And for that reason, I can't support the BPP or the BLA or any of that Marxist-Leninist stuff, because I think fundamentally, just on the idea, just on their ideology, capitalism is a better idea and a better way to create a society than socialism. Again, socialism has never been proven to work anywhere. So in summary, it says, yes, the BPP openly aligned with international revolutionary groups like the FLN, PLO, and Cuba, while the BLA had limited but real connections, mainly through Cuba and possible Palestinian training links. These relationships show how deeply tied the U.S. Black Liberation Army struggle was to the global anti-colonial and socialist front, which the U.S. often labeled as terrorist movements. And listen, what kind of training are they getting from the Palestinians? They're going to Palestine for training. What type of training? Is this army training, like terrorist army training? You know, I can't think of what other training they would be going there for, because it's not as if they weren't involved in terrorist attacks. You know, we had before how many of these things they were involved with. But let's just kind of go back and talk mainly about Assata Shakur, and I guess kind of what her legacy would be. You know, I wanted to speak a little bit. I wanted to speak about the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, because you can't really have a conversation about Assata Shakur without speaking about these organizations. So I kind of want to go back now and, just to close this off, speak about how is her legacy best explained? And that's the question I presented to ChatGPT. And it says, Assata Shakur's legacy is best explained as a contested symbol at the intersection of Black liberation, U.S. state power, and global anti-imperialist struggle. Her story represents both the radical hopes of 1960s and 70s Black movements and the lasting controversy of armed resistance in America. To many activists, especially in the US and the African diaspora, she represents the continuation of the struggle against racism, police brutality, and systemic oppression. Her autobiography, Assata, has become a classic text, often studied alongside works by Angela Davis, Malcolm X, and Frantz Fanon. She embodies the Pan-African and socialist vision that connected Black Americans to global liberation movements. Number 2, she's an example of state repression. Her case highlights the COINTELPRO era, when the FBI actively sought to neutralize Black radical movements through surveillance, infiltration, and criminal charges. For supporters, her conviction shows how Black radicals were unfairly targeted. For her critics, it demonstrates the dangers of violent extremism. She became a fugitive and political exile, reinforcing both sides of this narrative: resistance to oppression versus flight from justice. Flight from justice. She fled. Wait, she's an FBA and she fled. Is that considered fleeing? So FBA flee their country to go to join other terrorist countries. FBA do terrorism in their homeland that they created and then flee for a socialist safe haven. FBA flee too, bro. FBA flee too. Number 3, international symbol. In Cuba, she became part of the global anti-imperialist camp, embraced by socialist movements as a refugee from US oppression. Her continued asylum has kept her in the headlines, especially whenever US-Cuba relations are debated. For Pan-Africanists and Third World liberationists, she represents diaspora solidarity with decolonization struggles worldwide. So she has a divided legacy. Supporters see her as a freedom fighter, revolutionary, and survivor of political persecution. And that, I think, is the reason why FBA support her and mourn her death, is because FBA, you know, they support people that label themselves freedom fighters, revolutionaries, and just anti-Americans. FBA, for people who claim to have created America, for people who claim to have built America, FBA always support people that want to destroy America. Opponents see her as a convicted cop killer and terrorist who escaped justice. This duality means her name can evoke inspiration, fear, or controversy, depending on who tells her story. In short, Assata Shakur's legacy is best explained as that of a revolutionary icon of Black liberation, Pan-Africanism, and socialism, whose life also embodies the intense repression of radical movements in the US and the global fault lines of the Cold War. She remains a living bridge between the struggles of the Civil Rights Black Power era and contemporary movements against systemic racism. Yeah, I think that pretty much says it all. I think, for me anyway, it fully explains why FBA and Black Americans as well, it's not just FBA, most Black Americans will mourn Assata, but they will cheer the death of Charlie Kirk. Because again, Charlie Kirk represents patriotism. Charlie Kirk represents capitalism. And he represents the American dream, or the American way of life. That's what Charlie Kirk represents, and that's what Charlie Kirk pushed for and spoke up for, was the American way of life. Assata Shakur was the complete opposite. She spoke against the American way of life. She spoke against capitalism. Everything that America stood for, Assata Shakur rejected or fought against. And not just fought against vocally, fought against like on the battlefield. And so FBA, they claim to have built America, but one of their main goals is destroying America. Go figure. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about it for this reading. I think there's also, the only other thing I was interested in, because I always thought she was Tupac's mom. And I've always, because, Tupac Shakur, Assata Shakur. So the last thing I asked was she Tupac's mom? And ChatGPT says not exactly, but there's a close family connection. Afeni Shakur, born Alice Faye Williams, was Tupac Shakur's mother. She was also a leading member of the Black Panther Party in New York and a revolutionary activist in her own right. Assata Shakur, born Joanne Chesamard, was not Tupac's biological mother, but she is his step-aunt. Says, here's how. Afeni and Assata were very close in the Panther movement. Tupac grew up referring to Assata as Aunt Assata, and she served as a mentor and inspiration for him. He even dedicated the song Letter to the Unborn to her, and his album Until the End of Time includes references to her. So in summary, Assata Shakur is Tupac's mother, and Assata Shakur is Tupac's godmother or step-aunt and revolutionary influence. All right, so, I think that pretty much does it for the legacy of Assata Shakur, as far as I see it, or rather, as far as ChatGPT sees it. Yeah, and I think that is a pretty good representation of what her legacy is. And I also think that's a pretty good representation in terms of just my view as well. I think my view is a pretty good representation of the reasons why FBA support Assata Shakur and mourn her death, but absolutely do not support anything about Charlie Kirk and cheer for his death, because they are, as I've said before, they are opposite coins of the American coin, where one is pro-American, the other one is absolutely anti-American. So yeah, man, thank you for your time. If you don't mind hitting that like button, that would be great. I'm gonna take my leave. You know what I mean? It's Sunday. I got soccer games to go to with my boy. So until the next time, holla at your boy.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them up to one, hygiene a do it. That's why enough of them get rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want to drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 bills, we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet, but keep an eye open every time you go slave. Come mankind jealous and them idle go rape. Them never yet plant and not try figure rape. Bigger heads where you fight for the sake. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle with some meat. The system will slide where you fit.
In the streets so we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest and them want it out. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah. Everybody just a pre-success. When me looking at the street, you me see enough stress. Them all a fight for who reach up next. Everybody want floss and a beat up chest. Juvenile in a them teen love sex. Them a breed the fast money, them no need subjects. And if you're unfortunate, please don't vex. Also the things said cause the streets don't rest.
In the streets so we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest and them want it out. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah. It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them out to one, hygiene a do it. That's why enough of them get rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want to drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 bills, we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet, but keep an eye open every time you go sleep. Come mankind jealous and them idle go rape. Them never yet plant and not try figure rape. Bigger heads where you fight for the sake. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle with some meat. The system will slide where you fit.
In the streets so we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest and them want it out. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah.